gesturing to my own screen. Yeah, we'll just be giving it 5 minutes or so to give everyone a chance to sign up and join in. If anyone has anything that they would like to bring to the conversation throughout, then feel free to use the chat box and we'll be taking all questions at the end. But for now, I don't know if anyone wants to go around and quickly introduce themselves, tell us where you're from, what if you work for a brand, who do you work for, that sort of thing. Give us the chance to get to know each other while everyone else joins in.
Hey, I'll start. I'm Jo. I'm from Manchester. Hey Kelly, great to see you. I run my own business. I'm a consultant, so I help brands with product development and sustainability and innovation. I was in China for 10 years, so I bring that experience with me. And I connected with Kelly recently, and I'm super excited about the future of the industry because I think there's a lot of changes happening.
Amazing, thanks so much. If anyone else doesn't want to jump on the camera, they can also just put it in the chat box. So feel free.
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia. I'm actually based, hey, Kelly. I'm based in New York City. I'm a UX designer, but previous to UX design, I've worked in the fashion industry for a decade as a technical designer. So I've actually recently started learning about VR and AR, and I'm super excited about the field, and I'm excited to be here and hear what you all have to say and learn. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you.
Hi. Am I speaking?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. My name's Katie. I live in Winchester. I'm not actually currently working at the moment, but I did an MA in curating contemporary design, and so I'm interested in fashion and the future of fashion. So thank you very much for hosting this event.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a couple of comments here from Paula. Hello, everybody. I'm Paula, aka Mean Magenta, photography, mixed media artist, textile designer based in Derbyshire, UK. Apologies for lack of video, having some tech issues. No worries. Thank you for joining us. Alex is also joining us from France, and Giancarlo from Amsterdam Fashion Academy. Alex is a consultant in 3D fashion design. Very cool. We'll just give it another couple of minutes if anyone else wants to introduce themselves. And then I'll tell you all a bit about Lone Design Club and the LDC Accelerator, which is what we do, and then hand it all over to Kelly, who is our star of the show for today.
Maybe I will just say a quick hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I had a problem with the microphone. I'm a researcher working in fashion tech. I moved to Switzerland quite recently, and I found Kelly as well, who is an amazing person in the space, and she knows a lot about gaming and fashion. So I'm really looking forward to hear what she's going to say here.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I did not pay any of these people to appear today. I do not know any of them previously. But it's great to see you all.
That's great. That's great, everyone. We've also got Enrose from So Real with Kelly. So great. You've got a lot of friends here today, Kelly. I think let's go ahead and make a quick start, and then anyone else who joins can join in after. And this event will also be recorded and uploaded to the LDC Accelerator YouTube channel. So for anyone who had something pop up and couldn't join us for today, then they can still join our conversation afterwards. Okay, so I am Amanda. I am the Events and Partnerships Manager for Lone Design Club. LDC is a platform that unites and supports independent designers by giving them a direct to their customer. The LDC Accelerator is a platform that we've started building up in the past year or so, and it's a just another side of LDC where brands can find more information on how to grow and scale as a successful and sustainable business. So we focus on all kinds of different topics, from SEO and marketing to exciting things like innovation and technology, which is what we're here for today. But yeah, if anyone has any questions about the LDC Accelerator or LDC, then feel free to drop me a message at any point. But enough about me, I'll hand over to Kelly.
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everybody. I hope you can see my screen. So today our session is going to be about innovating fashion through tech. The big kind of question is, for a lot of people coming into this space, is what is VR? But I'm going to look at the bigger picture today. I'm going to look at XR, because extended reality covers those areas: VR, virtual reality, mixed reality, and then also augmented reality, which for the fashion industry particularly is a really big pull at the moment, because it's a very simple way to be able to get into this space. And I'd like to be able to show you ways that potentially extended reality can help to save fashion. So a little bit about me. I've been working in technology for 25 years, predominantly in the games industry. I have been making games and apps during that time. Some of them are games and apps that you know very well, and some of them may be business to business solutions and things maybe that you haven't heard of. But I like to think that with my teams over the last 25 years, we've been trying as much as we can to lead the way in technology. I consider myself currently to be a fashion innovator, and my direction into this space has been through games and technology generally, which brought me to Switzerland and allowed me to work for So Real, which is where I work now. And I work as head of game development, fashion and collections. That's a bit of a mouthful. But in a nutshell, what that is I'm the person that helps you to find solutions, whether they're technological solutions or object solutions, to be able to bring your objects, like the one you saw in the screen behind me earlier, the Vivienne Westwood shoe, into reality, or in this case, virtual reality. I also work as a technology mentor, where I help people to be able to realize and maybe visualize some of the tech dreams that they have outside of my job at So Real. That could be everything from creating the ultimate fashion game to developing solutions, platforms, and technologies for virtual try-on. You can contact me always through So Real or through LinkedIn. They're the two places, and I'll show you the contact points at the end. But you can always find me on any of the social networks, usually sounding off about something related to tech, fashion, and games. So the objectives for today are pretty simple. I want you to look at the use cases of VR and XR methods in other verticals, as well as this one. I want you to be able to understand existing and transferable techniques and terminology in future fashion. And I want to provide discussion points for us today in development and sustainability of design and manufacture. This should carry us across the next 3 sessions after this one. So I'll be here for the next 4 weeks discussing a lot of the topics that come out of today's session. So I want you to be able to, if you can join us for the other sessions, to really open your mind maybe and let technology in. And if you don't know how to do that, today is a really good starter or refresher. So what do we think of when we think about XR? This is Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote, and this is in 1993's Unholy Perfections episode. What I really like about this is this picture particularly is that Angela Lansbury looks absolutely amazing. That's the first thing. But second of all, she is operating what we conceived in those days to be early forms of virtual reality. So if you cast your mind back to the early 90s and the boom of cyber tech, virtual tech and tech in general, we place ourselves in the hands of Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller in Hackers. We can think about Lawnmower Man. But the reality about XR is something more usable, more utilizable, and less Hollywood. It's very functional, and it's becoming more functional with the advent of Facebook's Quest. So the Oculus Quest 2 released last week. It's more of an affordable price, and there's more of an opportunity for users to be able to lose themselves in a virtual space. And for a lot of people, that can be something that is more of a negative than a positive. But if you think about exactly what it is that the fashion industry are trying to do at all times, that is to engage users, to give users a reason to be in a place or be in a space and connect with their latest collections and lines, or to be able to communicate in a way that they feel that their engagees, influencers, and end users and consumers might behave, then virtual reality suddenly becomes less about 1993's unholy perfections in Murder, She Wrote, and more about, you know, being able to connect through Oculus in a wider e-commerce or omni-channel situation. I also think about Angel Chen, because actually her collection, it was very interesting to me in the fact that, you know, being somebody that's been working in technology for so long, and then suddenly seeing somebody like Angel Chen say, look, everybody, this is the future, even though quite a lot of fashion designers and developers had been in that space beforehand, it was really quite groundbreaking in the fact that it made virtual reality a little bit more mainstream. What I really liked and what I love about Angel Chen is, and I'm going to quote her here, "I love working with new technologies. My team and I were up for the challenge," she says. The final product of Chen and her team's work is a 6-minute video that shows her Akira-inspired collection in a variety of digital environments. So what she brings to the catwalk and to her collections mainly is a hybrid of lifestyle and fashion. And a lot of people already think of themselves as being in that space of lifestyle and fashion. But again, what I said on the previous slide about being able to connect people in that space, you really need to be understanding and conversant in that space. And that's the point where I want us to start today, because I think that though we have a great opportunity to develop within the digital landscape, we also have massive problems in the digital landscape. And a good place to start with any solution is to find a problem. The problem with XR and digital landscaping generally for a lot of fashion houses, developers, and small micro studios is that it's very expensive. It's extremely time consuming. If we talk about game development, we know that to make a mobile game that you would find on your Android or Apple phone can take anything up to 9 months to a year. But if we want to create something for the PlayStation, it might take anything up to 2 to 3 years to develop. If you apply that same methodology with an even smaller team into what it is that you're trying to do in fashion, then you find yourselves looking at projects that might be more than 3 years. And that's simply not good enough in terms of you getting to the marketplace. So this can be quite time consuming. In some cases, it doesn't land well. And it doesn't land well sometimes because what you think is the future is not necessarily what your end user believes to be the future. And, you know, to make the level playing field analogy here, we have to make sure that when we create, and I'll explain this in a little bit more depth, that we're creating for the end user and not for ourselves. If we don't understand VR and XR technologies, how do we expect everybody else to understand it? So it needs buy-in. Sometimes if people are making decisions and the guys and girls that hold the budgets, you know, say things like, oh, I don't know anything about this, but my son really likes playing on Half-Life Alyx, that's not always a really good starting point for you to be able to draw down budget if you're working in a bigger fashion house, or if as a micro studio and someone trying to start out, you're really scratching your head wondering. So find people around you that will buy into your idea and that will be able to help you. You will find, especially in this space, that there are lots of people, and I know quite a few of you are in the room today with us at LDC. You guys are very experienced, and it's a really good idea at these types of events to make sure that you network as much as possible with the people that are in the room, and that you also have that opportunity to be able to connect with each other outside of the online space too. And then finally, the problem with XR and digital landscapes is that things fizzle out, especially in fashion. What we think is really cool now, like lightning from Final Fantasy advertising Louis Vuitton that you can see on the slide, we think, you know, at the time in 2014, 2013, maybe that was really cool. But these days we want something that is a little bit more than a Snapchat filter, that's a little bit more than playing a Gucci tennis game. We want something, or we should want something that we can completely immerse ourselves into. So how do we start doing that? Well, for me, looking at the entire problem with XR and digital landscaping is that I feel like we've been here before. So I want to be able to get you into a place where you understand a little bit more about technical terminology and that you can start to build the basic building blocks of what VR or XR design might be today. So let's look at the product market fit. What does your target sales audience need? And what are your development pain points? I talked earlier about you might be a one studio, a one person studio, or you might be a huge fashion house. I spoke to a massive fashion house a couple of weeks ago, but they've got a disparity within the fashion house. So one side of the house is not really communicating with the other. So how do you know what your target sales audience actually needs, and what are your development pain points? Also, there are false positives when we come to product market fit. False positives particularly are the effect of misinterpreting customers' desires when it comes to looking for the solution as a desire for a company's product or service. The product market fit is not binary, and there's a fantastic game if you ever get to play it, and we call it a game, but it's not really, it's an experience. It's called Avakin Life. I talk about it quite a lot, but I guess the reason why I talk about it is because in my game's life, I have worked on this game, and it is one of the first games that I ever played or experienced. Again, it's more of a Second Life experience. So it's a digital landscape and a digital world. One of the great things about it was I was able to buy a Chanel jacket in here. And yeah, okay, it was something that was ripped off by the art team. But actually, a lot of labels got wise to what was happening inside Avakin Life and said, hey, there's a really good product market fit in here. If we can put some of our goods into Avakin Life, then people might buy these goods outside of Avakin Life. And that's exactly what happened. For a lot of labels that seem to fit the target sales audience, off the top of my head, labels like New Rock or Hell Bunny, for the goth kids, they definitely bought these products outside of Avakin Life. And that got the guys at Avakin Life, who are a fantastic company called Lockwood Studios, that got them thinking about e-commerce inside the platform. At the time, they were developing this game through a platform in PlayStation called PlayStation Home. But actually, they're a standalone experience now, and they have one of the biggest audiences. So if you are a smaller studio and you are looking to be able to get your products into the hands of your audience, maybe Avakin Life would be a good place for you to start in a digital landscape, and then you can build from there. They use fashion as a driver for their monetization model, which I think is amazing. They do take seasonal goods and they package them as digital products for mobile use. So you can play Avakin Life in your tablet, on your phone, or you can play it on your PC. It doesn't matter. but you will have seasons, and there will be events, and there will be experiences. And you know what? No one's getting hurt. Nothing's being wasted. The only things that are being wasted are digital. My next big thing in the fashion industry is digital sustainability, which I'm not going to talk about today, but I would like to keep an archive and hold as much of these digital objects and products as possible. But if you're looking for a first step, this could be a really great place to go. Here's some XR platforms of note that you may or may not have heard of and that you might want to explore. And if you're still not sure about them, please talk to me. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about today actually feature some of these platforms. I've worked in and experienced and developed in Altspace, Avakin Life, which I just mentioned, Unity Mars, which is the AR package for the Unity Technologies platform, Market, which is also the Microsoft Unity technology platform for mixed reality, ARKit and LiDAR, which are the current darlings of Apple. If you watched the Apple presentation yesterday, LiDAR was like a big win. You can scan absolutely anything in LiDAR, and it's a real lot of fun. But then if you want to know what to do with it, a good place to start is to go into ARKit and start to build your own AR experience. Eighth Wall are a solution provider, so they give you a platform with which to create your own AR experiences. I know that quite a lot of fashion houses work with Eighth Wall. They're very active in the fashion world and continue to be so. AR Core belongs to Google, and that's a Google development platform. And then Oculus ISV. Oculus ISV is the software vendor platform. And if you are creating any type of solution, I implore you to join the Oculus program. They're extremely helpful, really friendly, and it's a really great community. They also have a directory, which means that you're never alone. It's a little bit like having that kind of expertise outside of your general knowledge area. So if there are things you don't know or things you need access to, they will even hire equipment for you for one-off experiences, for example. For a lot of expos, they provide all of their inventory of ISVs that you can buy or hire. And additionally, they will point you in the right directions of people that you need to speak to with regards maintaining or providing solutions if you're just doing fashion and not full solution platforms. As I say, if you're still not sure about any of these things or you want to know more, don't hesitate to reach out. How we place the product in the moment. Now, I'm a designer, and like you guys that have loads of fashion design experience, all of my design experience comes from games. So where we look at functionality of clothing or not in some cases, in games, we look at functionality of design. So we look at the development within the various genre that we want to create for. We discover, so we do all of our homework first. We define, so we think about what we're going to use and how. We develop, we start the construction process, and then we deliver. So that might be a virtual catwalk, or it could be, in my case, a virtual sample. I'll be looking at virtual sampling in a couple of weeks. And it could even be an e-commerce experience. A lot of game development platforms these days are leaning closer and closer towards e-commerce experiences because they lend themselves technologically to high definition graphics. And that's a really great place to go. But you need structure. So if you're not prepared to structure the way that you would a piece of clothing into a piece of VR or XR, then you're going to find that your ideas are going to come unstuck quite quickly. You have to keep leaning back and looking back and then moving forward in design. So we try as much as we can as designers to look at what we said we were going to do in the first instance and then what we're actually doing, and just keep having those sanity checks. We do the same in VR and XR, and you should too. So if you have an idea that you want to create a virtual catwalk, tell the design what that virtual catwalk looks like. You don't have to go into the detail of color, etc. just yet. What you do need to know is, who are you showing this catwalk to? Who will be seeing it? What's your target sales audience? What are the expectations of the end user? Do you want to do it in web? Would you like them to see the catwalk in their pocket, on their mobile phone, on a tablet while they're traveling on a train somewhere? You have to be the driver of this, but actually your end user has to tell you what they need. And then make sure that you document that process. Developers really hate it when you come to them and say, I got this really great idea for something, it's going to be so cool. And then developers say, yeah, okay, what is it? And you say, well, I'm going to do this and this. And they'll say, well, did you write it down? Oh, no, I haven't had time because I've been really busy, da, da, da. Plan it. Just plan it and then pass it off to the developer, and they'll be so happy that you've written something down. Also, I always like to work in a kind of process where if you get hit by a bus, how is anybody going to pick up your work if you don't document the process and what it is that you're doing? That's a really awful thing to say, but it's actually really helpful, because if there are periods where you're taken away to work on other lines or collections, you probably need somebody to pick up that slack for you. So make sure that everything you want to do is documented. And then for user stories, as a game designer myself, it doesn't matter whether I'm doing a trim library or a footwear sampler, I have to be in the experience. So I want to know, as I said earlier with the catwalk, who are the models? How many? Because each one of these models has to be created, and they're not created by a magic wand. Sometimes they can take anything up to 2 weeks to create, and then they have to be iterated upon. Will the model have blonde hair? Is she going to have a specific set of poses? We call these idols and anims. And if so, you know, how far is he or she going to walk? Where do they turn? These are things that you have to tell a developer. Where's the collection set? Will you be using props? Is it just going to be a red catwalk with velvet drapes behind? Will you be using any VFX, like when the model turns at the end of the walk or runway, will they click their fingers and like loads of fireworks go off? How will this transpire into a visual entity? So think about these user stories, because they're really important. Here's an example of how we place the product in the moment. So this actually that we're looking at here is a software platform. If we're creating a game, all of those things that I just talked about, we're in a room, there might be a catwalk in the middle, there are plinths, we need to place things on top of the plinths or the mantles. These things have to be built. And so it's really important that you use that creative element of understanding and knowing every part of what you might do for a physical fashion show or a physical wholesale collection or a physical sample session, that you can apply that to the software. So if it isn't in the design, it won't appear in the software. Unless you halt the production, of course, and say, I demand that there is a plinth that goes in the middle of this room, in which case it will appear by magic. Here's another example. We call this grey boxing. So this is an opportunity for us to be able to move things around. We can experience different vibes by using different types of rooms. Here is a sort of officey bedroom type situation. But, you know, that might work for some small capsule wardrobes, virtual showrooms, etc. But if you want something that's on a wider scale, you've got to think about what it is you're going to put into that grey box, or you're going to do nothing at all. If you think about when we do fashion weeks, the amount of effort that's expanded into a fashion week, really the same amount of detail has to be applied to something on the small screen or something that's going to be seen in virtual reality. Virtual reality is particularly important because you have to remember that with VR, people can see through a headset, but they can also move and touch using haptic technology. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that's the idea that we can develop something called 6 degrees of freedom, which means that we can experience as many of the senses, have a depth of field perception, and that we're able to reach out and touch things. For developers, this means something called collision. And what collision does is it stops us from moving forward. So as I walk towards that hexagonal shape in the center of the screen there, it might tip over or topple. So that means that each one of these objects also needs to have its own movement experience or some kind of design focus where if it's kicked, it falls over. If it's brushed slightly, it slightly wavers. But if those things aren't there, then it's not going to feel real for your end user. So that's why we grey box things, so that we can test and prototype experiences before spending all that money and going into the real thing. This is like one of my probably favorite pictures of all time, which when I show this to my friends, they're always like, oh yeah, but this is just the Chanel show from Paris Fashion Week one year. My question is, why? And I think the reason that I ask this question every time is because a hangar in Paris is filled by a creative with sand, with sea, there are pontoons, there are like cute sort of tropical imagery, making you think that you're on holiday, blue skies. And then there's an audience of literally hundreds of thousands of people. And then for the reality check, we can see above that there is a full lighting rig and obviously the roof of where that part of the expo took place. My question is, why? I could create this in virtual reality, and I feel as somebody that works in technology that this would still, as a user experience, have the same cachet and the same pull as if I was sitting in that hangar. Just because we go to places like Paris Fashion Week, it doesn't mean that we can't go to the Paris Fashion Week in our mind. I have to be honest that I haven't been to Paris Fashion Week since 1989, 1990. But I don't need to be in that physical space in order to enjoy everything that's in this picture. I can create this picture in virtual reality. I can recreate everything that Karl Lagerfeld sees here or saw here, and I can develop that for VR. If it really just takes us being able to expand our minds a little bit, to look at the possibilities of what VR can do for us, I would be really excited to follow that path with you, because I'm a real champion and advocate for taking hundreds of thousands of people out of a room, off a plane, you know, out of a city. I appreciate that there are economical issues at play here, but I'd be really happy to take them out of that situation and put them into a virtual reality situation. The more that we can simulate everything that we do, the better opportunities that we have to be able to grow and share and be a stronger community in fashion. So how do we utilize technology generally? Well, here's some garment simulations. I am a really big fan of people trying and doing garment simulation. Generally, I think it's really important. It's fascinating to be able to understand, in especially the past year or so, where we came from and where we're going to with garment simulation. So it's not just about creating avatars. We have to also think about the clothing, and we have to think about the garments and how we're going to recreate them for simulation purposes, VR, and especially AR try-on purposes. We're heading towards a place at the moment where we're looking at fit, garment fit especially. I'll be talking about this over the course of the next couple of weeks, but it's something I'm extremely passionate about, is getting right. There will be a lot of cowboys in this space that will be creating stuff that won't necessarily last. And I want to make sure that the digital that we create now for garment simulation can last. So in order to do that, I've selected here a few things from Tuckertex to Browseware. You can have a look at these, I guess. A lot of you would already know them. But I'm very interested by pattern simulation, especially. It's something that can be created in AI, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into what we've been doing at SoReal right now, because we've been doing garment twinning ourselves. And what we've been able to do is maintain general sewing data as part of what it is that we're creating. So how much waste is actually created in making a virtual t-shirt? Absolutely none. The only waste is time. And that time is only wasted if you don't continue to use that garment. So where we looked just now at sort of Optitex and Browseware and Tuckertex and those guys, also, you know, a big shout out to guys like Stylacoot, because those dudes are really pushing the boundaries of what we can do with avatars. I also want to look at what we're doing with garment twinning, because it's fascinating to understand how seams work for me, which sounds really nerdy, but I'm somebody that's driven by data. And data is going to be the big next step in fashion. And alongside VR, XR, we want to be able to ensure that we're not just doing a best guess on general sewing data, because that affects everything from garment waste itself when it goes to the pattern stage and the development stage in manufacture, but also to fair labor policies. Why ask people to sew for longer than they need to sew? Why not do more MTM studies and be able to exact using AR and machine learning to be able to make that happen? These are the types of problems that we're trying to solve at SoReal. So if you've got any hints and tips, or you want to connect over it, or you'd like to know a little bit more about what we do in this area, please let me know. What we do at SoReal as well is all of our objects are exported for compatibility with XR. Everything that we create is usable, whether it's inside a game or whether it's inside your VR headset. Just to give you a little overview, a good rule of thumb is that FBX and OBJ are the two main object formats that you should be working with if you want to work in XR. And the reason for this is because FBX files particularly contain everything that you can manipulate as a designer, as a creator, as a creative, as a leader on a project. And the OBJ files contain all of the geometry and material information like a CAD. It's primarily used for importing avatar and related sources into programs. OBJ is really important because it also carries data in the same way that FBX does. If you're just creating CAD drawings, oftentimes you're not going to be able to carry that metadata over from the pattern or the drawing that you've made into where you want the object to be as a final destination. In my case, it could be, I want to create something for our AR demo. And so to do that, I have to make sure that I've correctly exported not just the FBX file, but also that I have that XBX file ready for XR and engine use. So here we can see something absolutely beautiful from Montclair, and it's completely virtual. The avatar selection animation is in place, the object animation is done, and it's a game ready export. We package our objects up for Unity and Unreal use, and preparing garments for XR and engine use is also so super important because we have to use what it is that the destination hardware requires us to create for. So that might be GLB and GLTF for virtual reality, or it might be for Unity and Unreal if you're using mixed reality. So preparing your technology for garment use, you need to have Potentially accessibility. Everybody needs to be able to see and work with and understand. Sometimes here, I'm working on some products at the moment to enable blind people to access fashion through VR. So being able to make sure that metadata can be read is something that's super important to me. Haptics. How do we handle things? How do things feel? What happens if I touch things? Do they fall over? What happens if I brush my hands virtually down my dress? Do I mark creases out of my dress, or do I put them in? Volumetric capture technology is a massive growth industry in the fashion industry. It is a way to be able to bring holograms to your door. So now, if I'm sitting here in Switzerland and I want to send something over to Amanda in London, I could potentially use volumetric capture technology so she can see the actual real thing sitting on her desk. Provided she has the hardware and provided I've created the software, there's no reason why I can't beam that information over to her instantly. At the moment, we're not completely there yet. We're using high definition render pipelines, and I'll explain those in a little bit more depth over the coming weeks. Gamification of garments. This is a really big pull for people who want to connect with younger people in fashion. Gucci are gamifying pretty much everything they're doing right now. They're turning all of their clothing into a game, and their avatars look like the types of avatars you might have found in a game 20 years ago, but obviously they're trying to be current, and I think that's really important. And then finally, as I said, metadata. The more that we can give value to a garment and an object, the more that we can receive value from that object. So how much a Hermes bag costs today, I don't care about that too much. I want to know what it's going to be worth 5 years from now. And so I'm working on the technology to be able to forecast how much a Hermes Kelly bag will be 5 years from now, looking at an object today. So choosing platforms is quite difficult when we're talking about VR and XR. Accessibility is king. Who is your end user? And this affects how you'll be able to sustain your product throughout the manufacture and retail process. The 2D and 3D capabilities. If I create something in Manchester, I want somebody to be able to see it in Shanghai. If I create something in New York, I want somebody to be able to see the same thing in London. So how do I make that happen? I can use something called a high definition render pipeline, which means that from point to point, it is a real-time technology. It means that what I put in at one end in my Unity platform, I see at the other end. Unity is actually quite great for this because it's an all-in-one editor, and it's especially geared towards graphics and visuals. It's got 2D and 3D support. So you might want to send over CADs, or you might want to send over avatars. There's AI pathfinding tools, so you can build your own UI and UX easily, and AI can help to be able to develop that process. There's rapid iteration, which means that that gray box you saw earlier, if you don't like things in there, you can get rid of those things and you can start with something new. And then there's a developer community. People are always happy to help you in any of the engines that you use. And a good reason for this is because the game development community is an extremely friendly and helpful community that want people to use these engines to do more than just games. And here is an example of Unreal. So Unreal, you know, it has similar capabilities, but it's good for high definition. If you're creating something that is really exact, like that Moncler dress, and you want people to be able to see it, you will put that dress into Unreal technology, because Epic make a cinematic level engine that is for that use, for detail, maximum detail. So if you want something to look absolutely incredible, and it's a museum piece and you need that level of detail, you will use Unreal. I'm going to explain a little bit about who does what in this area. So Unreal Engine supports mixed reality to some extent, but this is a real platform that totally drives exactly you know, what I said in terms of detail. It's all about the graphics and the cinematics. So if you're just showing a dress, that's cool. But if you want to build an entire working environment behind it that's in detail and depth, you're going to want to do that in Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine has its way of allowing texture and material artists or visual effects artists to create beautiful effects from the beginning. That's true. But some of the problems that we have is that it's a typically bigger learning curve. It's best for graphics, but Unity is much closer to be able to get into the marketplace. It's much faster. It's like using a sledgehammer to break a nut in the case of Unreal Engine. I love it. I think it's great for PlayStations and Xboxes and some virtual reality cinematic experiences. But I'm not sure if you want to create a virtual sampling tool, that it's the best tool to use, the best engine to use. Please convince me otherwise. I'm always happy to have that debate. How will your experience handle? Okay, so you want something that's got ease of use, and you need something that fits within your budget, but it also has to be a perfect showcase of your collection. It might be something that you want people to try on, touch, be near, be close to, understand, dive into. Next week, I'm going to be looking at supply chain and garment provenance, you know, and sometimes we are asked how many microns we can go into a piece of fabric or textile. And we can go in quite deep, but you have to ask the question, does your end user want that as depth? And how will your experience handle? Haptic technology, as I said, is about feel, touch, and access. But it's for the whole body. It's not just for touching in that sense. It's about colliding with objects. It's about colliding with the experience as a whole. And volumetric capture brings the garment closer to life, as I said. If Amanda's in London and I'm here, I want her to see a hologram of my latest work. I'm going to send it in volumetric video. The problem with that is there is always a lag, because a volumetric video most times is sent either by MP4 or it's captured separately. Some great use cases come from places like Dimension Studio in London. These guys are the guys that did the Madonna billboard performance, where we saw the various stages of the Madonna eras throughout time, and they did that in volumetric capture so that the real Madonna could stand next to all of her holograms. It does keep wastage low, and it's perfect for the supply chain, but it's a very costly exercise. How does SoReal drive fashion tech? We use static, dynamic, destructible objects. So you can choose to have a static object where you just see the outside, like this shoe here, this Lola Ramona. You can see the dynamic, which is an animated, movable, or a shoe that you can look inside of, or a destructible object, something that can be manipulated fully for haptic technology. We have also built into that metadata, so data-driven targeting for future-proofing product design. We make solutions that survive. We provide solutions that have value, fit, texture, game-ready and usability solutions, and we also use machine learning. Machine learning is a growth area. It's already being used massively in the manufacture sector, especially with our supply chain friends in India. They are really big into AI and machine learning technologies for pattern, block, and non-toile fittings. And I just wanted to show you kind of like a world's first before we disappear and go to questions. This is a t-shirt. This is the first ever scanned in t-shirt. And you can see that as well as it looking like a normal t-shirt, it has the creases like it's been on someone's wardrobe, and also it has seams and general sewing data information that you can't see here that is attached to it. So you can download our demo from SoReal Digital Twins AR on Google Play and from the App Store. We look after fashion, games, cinema, films, and museums. And everything we create is of a high quality and an ease of use. If you see anything in our demo and you think, I really want that, please reach out to us. I would be so happy to help. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can contact me here, kelly@soreal.ch. Electric Geisha is my Twitter handle, and you can reach me, kvero, on LinkedIn. Over to questions. And thank you for your time.
If anyone wants to pop questions into the chat box, we'll be happy to read them out if that's what you prefer. Very interesting presentation though, Kelly. Thank you so much. Definitely learned a lot.
I'll be back next week to do more with you guys, so I'm really looking forward to that anyway.
Yeah,
I think, as I said, we're doing garment provenance and supply chain. So we'll be looking at antique counterfeiting and how we use 3D and VR, XR technology in the supply chain. So I hope you can come along for that next week.
great.
Kelly, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Vasilios, and I'm in New York City with the Fashion Institute of Technology in the footwear and accessories department. I loved this. So for me, this is exactly what I want to get into, and I'll probably be like 90 years old before I learn all of this like Cher. But have schools contacted you, like an FIT or other colleges, where you collaborate with them and expand on the technology that they already have?
Well, I do quite a lot of lecturing in Switzerland, actually. I do a lot with SAE and ETH. But actually, in terms of fashion, there are some great fashion courses that do this sort of fashion technology. But actually, myself, I haven't been contacted to do any of that stuff, Vasilios. So no, I'd be very happy to provide you with any support that you need, though. And if you want to develop your tool sets further, there's not a massive learning curve to what it is that you need to do in terms of XR. It's literally about switching what you know about fashion design and putting it into a different technology design.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're going to be 90 before you get to do this. That's just crazy.
It's insane. So I am going to send you an email.
Please do.
Definitely, it's going to be bulleted point, easy for you to get to. And we'll continue our discussion, definitely. Thank you so much for this. And I'm looking forward to more.
Thank you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else got any questions? Feel free to jump in.
Kelly, I've got a question. I'm really new to this, so I'm sorry if it's a stupid question. But in fashion, we work very much with a critical path, and there's certain cutoff dates that have big implications if we go past them. In terms of this, is there a similar thing? So for example, once you do the gray box, that's your time to make any changes. Once you go past that, actually, you're going to run into huge costs. Is there a similar process?
It's great because the games industry and the tech industry and the fashion industry, we all work on this critical path process. So any critical path analysis that we do throughout the course of the supply chain development, either through PLM or whatever, which I'll talk about next week, we are constantly hitting those targets too, Joe. So iterating upon designs, we have a period with which we can iterate. We create something in games called a vertical slice. You guys call it a sample. It's the same thing. So we do work within that kind of, we just use different terminology, but it's exactly the same.
Brilliant. Also, just to echo, this has been amazing. Really,
I hope so. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm sure if anyone has any other questions, they can always feel free to drop either of us an email afterwards. Yeah, that was super, super insightful. So thank you so much, and can't wait for the next one. I think the conversation is just going to take it into more deeper insight from here on out. So very excited. And then hopefully by the 4th week, we'll all be experts on VR and technology.
Definitely. If I've got anything to do with it, that's exactly what will be happening, Amanda.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you all next week. Any questions, just drop us a line in the meantime. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you. Bye, guys. See you next week.
Thank you. It was amazing.